Are you ready to push the boundaries and take your company to the next level? I'm Stacy Goodman, founder of Origamic Solutions, and we're here to be your co-pilot, navigating you to operational excellence and helping you level up with love. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and at our website, origamicsolutions.com. That's ORIGAMIC solutions.com. Together, we will find solutions and prepare you to soar.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mike King here, Origamic Solutions. The team is here with us. Tim, Stacy, hello folks, how are you?
Good, how are you?
All righty, welcome back. Tim, here you go, floor is yours.
Sure. So we're Origamic Solutions. We're an operations management advisory and consulting firm. Super fancy way of saying we want to help your business grow and build stronger. So we come in through advising and consulting services to help businesses level up with their infrastructure, their planning, and also their execution.
There you go. Stacy, your vision. Let's talk about, really quickly, let's talk about what you're seeing now. We're at the tail of the year. We're into the fourth quarter. Folks are trying to do, what are some things a person needs to wrap up now? We're out of the planning stage. Let's talk about some processes that need to be wrapped up so we can go into 2025 a little stronger.
So coming into fourth quarter as a business owner, you need to start making sure that your books are cleaned. Meaning if you're running QuickBooks, if you have transactions that haven't been categorized, you want to make sure you've done that. If you have mileage that you haven't calculated, things that you're going to need to give to your accountant. That takes a long time, but the deadlines for businesses are in February, not in April, like a personal. And if you have an LLC, you have to have your business done before you can do your personal returns. So making sure your books are clean. The other is if you have subcontractors, you also need to make sure that you're accounting for all the hours and preparing to do the 1099s, because 1099s have to be out by the end of January. So with the holidays that come up, if you're not already starting to think ahead by now in October, that's going to jump on you pretty quick. And then you're going to be scrambling, trying to do whatever you planned for in the first quarter to start, plus you're trying to wrap up the end of the year. So the financials are important. They also let you know where your profitability is for the end of the year, what you can, fund for the next first quarter coming up. You want to look at, if you're a service-oriented company, you want to look at what your pipeline looks like. So I'm doing all this work. What are the next jobs that are coming up? So that you can plan accordingly for how much revenue you're going to have and what things you can do. So a lot of times we talk about in the fourth quarter, well, what are the big things? Well, I'd like to do these objectives. The question is, do you have the capacity, meaning the people and the time, and then do you have the funding available? And if you haven't kept up with your books and you haven't, you're going out of the third or the fourth quarter into the first quarter, you're either going to be overspending or, taking a loan out, which is, I'm personally just anti taking loans out. They put people at risk, especially small businesses. And so because they now must perform because they have to get certain amounts of revenue to pay back those loans. When you're debt free, you have a lot more flexibility and freedom. So looking at those things in the end of the fourth quarter is critical for success in the first quarter.
Could you touch on that a little bit? I don't think sometimes that is as clear, that one of the things being debt-free allows freedom, that you have to perform at a certain level once you take the money.
Right. So one of the things that's coming up lately is, we're listening to the campaign promises of whatever, and that's understanding the difference between a credit and a grant. And some of the grants you can get grants, or you can get, and they may be given to you, but they also may be conditional. Some of the conditions are reimbursement grants. So you have to have the money and spend the money before you get the money back, right? So that has gotten some of our nonprofit friends in a little bit of trouble. because they were budgeting as if they're going to get money to help fund their day-to-day when they actually needed to have already generated revenue, because they're just getting reimbursed for the money they spent. Another piece is, Harris is saying she would like to offer up $25,000 for new businesses, or $50,000. That is a credit that you would get. There is already a credit out there for $5,000, but you have to spend that money. So how are you going to get the money? You either go and get a loan. The loan goes against, if you're a small business, the loan goes against your own personal liability. If your business fails, you're still liable for the loan. And then the tax credit only comes back, so you might have to go a year, spend the money, then you get into tax season in January, February, April, time frame. You apply that credit to your taxes. Now, you may or may not get that money back until a little while later. So there's a very long lead time when you have to fund that money in order to get that credit, and you have to be successful. Some of them come with conditions. So when you're looking at funding, you have to be very cautious. For me, where I was told was, before I went into business, it was to have an entry and an exit strategy. An exit strategy of how I was coming out of corporate business, and an entry strategy of how I was going to fund my business going forward. Now, you can do it on a shoestring. You can save up I started with $2,000. That's how much money I had in cash. And then I worked real hard. I saved everything. I took the minimum I needed to live, and I put everything else back into the business. That way I had savings to start growing the business from there. And I follow a Dave Ramsey methodology for business, because I feel like it does keep me safe. If the business were to fail, I'm no longer liable for a loan. Now, some companies can't do that. You can't open a restaurant unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, because you need equipment, and you need a brick and mortar space generally, or you need a food truck, right?
I did have a friend,
so you have to balance that,
who had said that she owned a restaurant, and she would always say, I don't owe anything. So at any time I could just shut it down and walk away, and there's nothing there.
Right.
There's no problem. A lot of businesses don't have that ability to do that, because I always wondered why restaurants close, boom, today. Most businesses, they kind of
drift off.
The restaurant just closes today. But if you have employees and you tell them you're closing on next Tuesday, who's coming between now and next Tuesday?
Right.
Or I asked, when do you know it's over? They said, when I can't buy food for the next day.
Week or the day or whatever.
So, Tim, when you is the conversation different with restaurants, or from industry to industry? Is it different sometimes?
The principles stay the same. So restaurants, hospitality isn't a space that we necessarily have the most expertise in, so I don't want to talk too much on the specifics of it, but just from industry to industry, there's always nuances, but general best practices are always going to be applicable, right? Stacey's talking about being debt-free. Doesn't matter what type of business you run, that's going to be a pretty good move, right? Cleaning your books up, making sure all of those processes are in order. You have to do that whether you're a food truck, a 3-star Michelin, or...
Does not matter.
No, it doesn't matter. All that stuff, at the end of the day, a business is a business.
Right. And you might have people who invest in your company. And that's one of the pressures that people who are not a business owner don't necessarily understand that business owners have. And that is, if you have people who invest into your company, it's great, because you get money to do what you have, but you also have somebody you're now accountable to. If you have a loan, you now have an accountability to making sure you pay back that loan. There's additional pressure. And if you can find a way to run your company with minimizing those pressure points, then you have more freedom and flexibility, because you're the one making the decision as opposed to somebody else. And that also counts for when you have boards of directors, for even nonprofits, or for a for-profit where you're in a corporation and you have to have that structure. Now you have more in people's voices coming in and influencing you and putting potential pressure on you. So we understand that there are those components, but the if you can run your company and minimize those stress points, it just gives you more flexibility.
So your methodology does not necessarily depend upon for-profit, non-profit.
No,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Good practices, processes.
That give you processes and planning that give you the revenue you need in order to fulfill all of your operational expenses and needs. And then after that, how you grow, you strategically think of, well, do I want to take on an investor, right? It's going to give me money. I'm willing to give up some control or some equity in the company in order to fund this. Or do I want to, really look at what are the things that I do that generate the most profit margin? Can I adjust my profit margins and grow slow and steady? Those are generally people that want to keep a little bit more control over the pace. That pace of growth versus pace of spending are also two different things. We're growing fast, but we're trying to control our spending while we're doing it. And that was one of the things that opened up one of our newer services we're building up, which is maximizing the return on investment with Microsoft 365 suite. As we're growing, we're investing, but we're not buying. I'm buying people, not things. I'm trying to utilize the most I can get out of what I already have. And sometimes that means going old school, writing it down on paper.
Sometimes that
works, and there's nothing wrong with it if it works. And then you can automate and modernize from there, but at least you know you have a process that is successful.
Tim Pizzani, Stacy Goodman is here. Tim, newsletter, we are quickly approaching the date.
Yeah.
What can we expect this time?
Sure. So newsletter this week, we're moving along with our impact methodology. We are in the act phase, correct. We're in the act phase. Our books will be aligned with that as well. We do have an announcement of a new employee joining the team. So you'll learn a little bit more about Jim as well, which we're super excited for, to have him come on and help expand some of our consulting capabilities.
So Jim is an old friend of mine and a mentor, coming to us from my previous company of Impact Makers. He has over 30 years experience in operations, running companies, as well as brings a technical expertise to his skill sets, and we are thrilled to have him. And so we've announced him on our LinkedIn page. We'll be adding him to our website, and hopefully bringing him into this show on occasion.
Alrighty, Tim is here. Stacy Goodman. When she walks in, this is her walk-up music.
Are you ready to push the boundaries and take your company to the next level? I'm Stacy Goodman, founder of Orgomic Solutions, and we're here to be your co-pilot, navigating you to operational excellence and helping you level up with love. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and at our website, orgomicsolutions.com. That's ORIGAMIC solutions.com. Together, we will find solutions and prepare you to soar.
Alrighty. Tim, so you had dropped an acronym on us before, and I just want to go back. I come from the military. We are the kings of acronyms. Let's go with IMPACT once again. We're going to keep drilling that down until there's no question. Give us that methodology, the meaning of the letters.
Sure. So we have our infrastructure, which is your organizational infrastructure, your tools. We have your measurements, right? The numbers, the data that we're going to run our businesses on. We have our plans, right? How are we going to plan to execute, whether continuing our operations or building new ones. ACT is our execution. We have continuous improvement, which is, and control. There's two. Continuous improvement, obviously, those enhancements like we talked about. Control is putting in our quality assurance. Is the product or service doing exactly what we want? And then we have transparency or transition. Transparency in data to make sure we can continue to grow, or transitioning out of a project, which means equipping the business owner to be effective in that process.
So, Stacy, you brought on a new employee, and his name is?
Jim Blizzard.
Jim. He should be from somewhere like Minnesota. Jim Blizzard. Okay, So we've had the conversation about growing your business, what it's like to absorb another employee.
Mm-hmm.
You had said, are we down to the size of a peach bringing on a new employee?
I'm getting better at
Getting
it.
better.
Every time we bring on, so he's going to be, he's graduating up into a full-time employee. So one of the learnings that I have found over the years of being in consulting companies is you don't know you have the work until the purchase order is on the table and signed.
Mm.
So you can anticipate that work coming. So with him and what we've been able to, not can't do this without everybody, it depends on people's individual situations. But with him, we're able to bring him on hourly until we can get up to 40 hours steady, and then I can bring him in as a salaried employee. But he also is being motivated. He's going to help us grow our mid-tier business.
What does that mean?
So mid-tier is you're over 25 million in revenue. So you've exceeded small. So small by definition of the state is under 25 million, under 50 people, I think 25 to 50 people. And then over that is our mid-tier. So you're a local big company like a Serve Pro, would be a good example from our chamber, a CNF Bank, those types of things. They're bigger. They're not your Capital Ones. You're not
they're mid-tiers.
They're called mid-tiers. And so we have the experience because Jim and I have both been, working for large government agencies and the big Fortune 500 companies for, most of our experience of our decades in business. But we've also worked with mid-tiers. And then I grew up with small business, so I have gravitated down into the small business space to help out. And he has a heart to do the same. But he's going to be able to help build out another element that allow Tim and I to focus still more in the small business, and I'll flip between the two.
So what does Jim bring? You always bring in people to complement the team. What is Jim's area that's his thing?
Jim brings a lot of strategic work.
Oh, he's that guy?
He's the guy who can see it and figure out what the plan's going to be, and then he can still tactically execute it if he needs to. He also brings in a deeper knowledge of the technical tools and skill sets that help to support the operational components. So he knows what we call enterprise architecture, and so that is all the different technical components, say for the county, right, of Chesterfield, and how do they all work together. And he can see that map of all those technical solutions supporting all the different business functions. He also has a lot of years of project management and talent development that he can bring in. So that gives me extra support for bringing in younger talent. And so I have another person with the same and similar years of experience. And he and I at Impact Makers, when I first started, he and I were hip to hip on building a lot of the internal structure of how do we price out, an engagement, how do we build a talent development, strategy, and what do those different levels mean, and how do, and a growth, where we can hand it over to Tim and go, all right, here's the growth plan, go train them up on how to do that. So he has the bigger picture. And that allows me, I like to play more in the middle tactical. So he's a nice complement.
Alrighty, Tim, you guys always come with a topic that you want to touch on. Mm-hmm. What are we touching on today?
Yeah, so the importance of concise communication, right? Being able to take those big words and break them down into plain English.
Like enterprise architecture.
Yes.
that is something there.
Those are big words, and in consulting, we have a lot of big words that we use, but he was saying, if you know what you're doing, you can break it down into something that's more accessible, and you call it English.
Yes,
right?
We're speaking English.
So that's one of the skill sets when you're transitioning from the big businesses to a mid-tier or to a small business. You have to use different language to explain the same concept. And what we want to be able to do, one, that's a critical skill for anybody that's going to work at Orgomic, because you need to be able to run the spectrum. But for our small businesses and our education program that we're going to be building up, we want to help them level up through gaining new vocabulary and understanding the industry vocabulary and how that translates into English. Because if you're a kid in school, right, you start out with the see, spot, run, right? And then you grow up into see, spot, run down the street, and get a bone. You know, it starts to add more details. But then as you go up in the school level, you have to read more and you get exposed to more bigger words. And sometimes you have to go look up those words. My son is going through that now with the EMT program that he's in. And one of our team members, who is a college student, is helping to tutor him with regards to how to read and write his notes. And one of the things she told him this summer was, when you don't know a word, look it up and put it in your notes, because your brain, if you can see it, hear it, understand the definition, and then apply it into a sentence, it allows your brain to move and into a bigger vocabulary, which makes you more articulate, helps you understand big words when you go into other environments. It's just like learning a language. I can say, sí, hola, and then when I listen to some of the, Latinos come in and do their show, they may be saying different words. My husband and I went to Boston. It was Hispanic Heritage Month, and there was a band out there, a big band with lots of horns. We were following sounds through the city. We got to the band, and she's saying everything in Spanish. I had a couple of years in Spanish class in high school. I was able to pick out certain words, right? And so it's the same thing. If I go into a business environment, I'm using acronyms, or you can start to put the puzzle pieces together, even if you don't have all the experience. So leveling up with your vocabulary is just as critical in business as it is in real life. And so reading, that's why we offer the books on our newsletters, because reading the books is more than hearing a YouTube, right, where you might get the word and the context, but it hasn't absorbed as much. So that's one of the things we want to do, and then being able to break that down to English. Because if I talk to you in big words and you don't understand a word I'm saying, I'm not very effective. I haven't added value to your life. If I say it in a regular terms that you can understand and you can connect with, now I have some sense of value that I've added into your business or your life.
It's that knowledge transfer that you talk about. So Tim, when you're out there talking to business owners, if they've invited you in because they have a problem, they understand who you are, what you do, and why you came.
Right.
You just randomly meet someone or you start talking, Origamic Solutions, this is what we do. The person isn't getting it.
Right.
Drop on me, what's the thing that you say that all of a sudden they're like, I get what you guys do now?
Yeah, so when I'm talking, and it depends, right? So a lot of, like we're talking about building a vocabulary, your soft skills and your emotional intelligence around people is something that's built over time, right? So being in sales, we talk to people all the time. Yes. I can tell if you're somebody that's like, just shoot me straight. Like, just take the fluff out. Yeah. Or you want all the details. So I'm going to have that kind of knowledge coming in. But really what I want to get across to them is we're here to solve your problem in an effective way that's going to save you money and make it easier to maintain long term. That's something that somebody can digest. How we're going to do that, what we need to do on the back end, whether it's a technical solution, we're going to bring in experts. Stacy's or Jim's going to have that conversation and break it down. But for me, I really just want them to know, like, we're here to help you solve your problem, put in a solution that's going to help you long term, and we'll be by your side to do it.
And if I say something to you like, well, we're going to do a process flow diagram, Mike, and you look at him going, what? And he goes, she's going to draw you some pretty pictures.
Yeah.
So explain the power of having a Tim to go and be the translator, because what you just said, the person I don't get it, and they say, oh, that's what you mean.
Right. So hopefully you cultivate those skills to be able to make it. But if you don't have those skills, and some people don't,
Some
like
people
they
do
only
not.
think in their one language, to have a translator is no different than having a translator going into a different country, right? And so that's where you have to balance out the skill sets and know who your audience is and who do I need to send. So would I send Tim into a Fortune 500 company going, please go tell them about all our process, stuff? He'd be
Not yet.
no, but I'd send Jim,
Yeah.
right? Because Jim's got that articulation, vocabulary, and experience on how to present to that audience. But I can send Tim into any of our small businesses without me being there, and very comfortable that he can articulate and help them understand.
Do you think that when Jim comes to those, he's too much of the authority figure and the younger ones just like that maybe is too much for us?
It can be, but he's a very flexible individual.
So he can
So
go.
I've seen him because he teaches children at church,
Okay.
right? So he's able.
So
to,
he's that guy.
He can go to from a third grader to a corporate CEO. He has that ability, but that's 30 years of experience that has cultivated that. To bring in a younger person who has not cultivated that, that's something that Tim helps to talk to them. This is how we talk to this customer, and we know this about this customer. They like PowerPoints. This one likes something else. Different ways of interpreting and visualizing information. Some people would like to get a hug, and others don't. You just have to learn the people. So he goes and introduces and makes acquaintances with different potential clients, and then he lets me know what he learned about them. That helps me craft how we're going to present to them. So
There you go.
it's a team effort.
Origami Solutions, they're helping you level up with love. The ability to go into different rooms, that's what's happening, like with the bench that you have, the technical bench. All right, so on the mic is Mike. Tim, how can people find information out there about you?
Sure, on all major social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, under Origamic Solutions. Our personal pages, Stacy Riley Goodman, Tim Pisani on LinkedIn, as well as our website, origamicsolutions.com, and be sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter.
On the mic
And YouTube.
And
YouTube.
Don't forget YouTube.
We have our sessions with you.
There you go. On the mic with Mike, Stacy, and Tim. Thanks now. Take care.